When you've been hurt your whole life, the person who shows you kindness sometimes looks like a hero. That's how I saw him, not as a man, but as a miracle. And that's exactly what made me the perfect prey. My name is Shamiria Bailey, and this is No Sugar on the Rocks. Last episode, I told you how I became a mother at 19, alone, betrayed, and just figuring it out as I went. This episode, I'm going to tell you about the man that I met just 4 weeks later, the man I married, the man that I thought was going to save me. His name was Jay. And this is how it all started. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end well, but you need to know exactly how it began because that's how they get you. So after being pregnant, giving birth to my child and realizing that the man that had put me in that situation was not going to step up to the plate, baby mamahood started. There was this man that was very active all over my social media accounts. And he would comment on all the pictures of me and my son. He would comment on all the pictures of my son. And so that made me feel like he was prepared to accept us as a package deal. He'd been DMing me and messaging me, and it was quite casual up until that point because, well, I had just had a baby. This particular night, he messages me and he tells me that it's his birthday. And it possibly could have been, and he could have been lying. And at the time, it just didn't matter. I was feeling very just empty and alone. And so he asked if he could stop by just for a chit chat. You know, he acknowledged that I just had my baby and he assured me that he didn't want anything more than a conversation. And I needed that. And so I invited him over. Note that I live with my mother at this particular moment, and I'm the youngest of 4 children. And as far as I am sure, my mother was supposed to be done raising kids at this point of my life. And so while she was supportive and helpful, she was not happy at all. So having him pull up at my mama's house was already a bit brave of me, I'll say that. So he pulls up and I remember him getting out of the car and he looked like a man. He gave grown man. And I was at a moment in my life where I felt very grown, where I felt like I needed to get grown, had to be grown. And so that fit the theme. And he sat down and began talking to me, I would assume like any other 2 people just meeting each other would communicate. He was nice. He was respectful. He was poised. He was calm. He smelled good. He looked nice. And he was interested in me. We sat on the porch, and at this time, it was already well into the night, maybe about 10 p.m. by the time that he first sat down, and the conversation started very, very casual. You know, where do you work? You know, where are you from? Do you have any children? Do you have any siblings? Are your parents married? Just the typical get to know you stuff. And the more questions that he asked me, the more anxious I became. And in the beginning, I really tried to keep all of the questions on him. But at some point, he really focused on me and I completely folded under pressure. I went from sitting here trying to be flirtatious and friendly to just being so overcome with emotion. I don't know if he asked me how I had gotten there or, just tell me about yourself. But he opened the door and I walked right in. I remember sitting on a porch for at least 3 hours, pouring my heart out. Every secret, every thought, every action. I told him everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. I went into great detail about being sexually assaulted as a child, experiencing sexual assault by family members, being estranged from my parents. I told him all about the turbulent relationship that I had with my mom. I told him everything. And at that time, it felt like I was trying to breathe. The more I spoke, the more water was let out of this tank that was placed directly on top of my head. And I didn't know, or I couldn't understand why him out of all people or that place out of all places was the place that I was, crying, snotting, can barely catch my breath. A real cry. And he just sat there and he listened so attentively to every word. And he was so calm and non-reactive to what it felt like me pouring my heart out. And I felt safe and seen. After expressing to this man in every way that I was broken, in every place that I was damaged, in great detail how I was no good at all for him or nobody else, he walked to his car, he turned around and looked at me and said, I'm going to make you my wife. And in that moment, I knew for sure that God had sent him specifically for me. The weeks to follow, he would come by. He would take me and my son out. He would give me money so I could get toiletries for the house because my mom's main thing was like, you can be here, but I'm not taking care of you. And so he would help make sure I had diapers and wipes and formula if the week didn't add up. And he would get me out of the house, and not just me, but me and my son. And he called and he texted and he kept up with my needs and my wants and my feelings and my emotions. He immediately stepped into a father role. And the father role was wide open. And so I and nobody around me had any objections. This man was 14 years my senior. And so I felt that he was well and equipped to lead me, to guide me, to teach me, right? To teach me how to be a woman, how to be a mom. The only thing next to being a mom is being a wife. And so I was prepared to step into that role. Things went fast, really fast. I had met him in August. By that November, I had applied for income based housing. I got my own apartment in my own name, and he moved right in with me. That should have been a first red flag. The night that I was pouring my heart out, he shared with me that he had been in a long-term relationship with another woman and things didn't work out, but they had a shared home and shared everything. So he was having to find him his own place. And so me moving into my very own apartment felt like divine alignment. And this just makes all the sense. And instead of me doing life by myself and being a first-time mom all alone, it makes so much sense to have a father for my son and a man for myself and support and love and guidance. And so he moved right in. He moved right in. My mama hated him. Okay. But honestly, I felt like my mama hated him. So of course she would hate anybody that loved me. Right. She disapproved because he was older. And at that point in my life, all of the men that I willingly had sex with was older. He had a criminal record. I felt like, well, he ain't in jail now. And he had also been in the military. She disapproved because he was already a father of children that she didn't feel like was physically present, so he couldn't have been a good father. And I just felt like, well, you don't know him, his situation, his kids, his family, or nothing else, so you can't possibly know what you're talking about. Me and my mother's relationship was already just strained because I would say because she was a young woman who didn't have all the answers either, and she had to find the answers to give to her daughters. And I was the daughter who she would always say was just like her, you know? And so we just didn't get along well. And so her not liking him felt on trend for where we were. Things started off good in our own home. This man got in the bath with me every day and showered me from head to toe when he said it was because queens didn't bathe themselves. He brought me a gift every Friday because he told me he wanted to remind me that I was worthy. He helped me raise my son. He taught him how to walk. He helped me potty train him. He gave him his first haircut. It felt like God was giving me a break. I was a fragile, broken little girl who couldn't process what my life had become up until that point and was just trying to keep going. And I didn't have all the necessary resources and equipment and wherewithal to manage my emotions and communicate effectively and protect myself and set boundaries. And so when we would argue and I would start to show aggression, he started to be violent. And initially, I wasn't alarmed and I felt like push back, like don't push me, right? Domestic violence doesn't usually start with a direct punch to your face. It's usually gradual. And so it started with being pushed and being shoved. And I remember him going through my phone one time and seeing my coworkers texting me. And he literally punched the windshield out of the car while he was driving it. But then he asked me to marry him. And while I know that the different things that I'm experiencing can't be good, I also know where I've been, and that for sure wasn't good. And so I decided to find my own way. We get married outside of a little farm in Monroe, Georgia, no wedding dress. No flower girls, no wedding party. Very small amount of people. My biological father and his wife showed up. One of my sisters came, and I felt like it was him and I against the world. It felt like Bunny and Clyde. Everything and everybody's telling us not to do it, and we're gonna do it anyways because all we got is each other. Me and my mother had been through so much throughout me and this man's relationship that the distance between us was so grand. She couldn't have told me nothing, helped me with nothing, interfered with nothing if she wanted to. By that point, she had physically assaulted me. She had come into my home and disrespected me. She had mocked me. And I wanted to be as far away from her as possible. And if I'm being honest, that's exactly where the abuse starts. It starts once the abuser realizes that you're isolated or once they have successfully isolated you. And at that time, it felt like protection. It felt like he saw everything that had happened to me and he was making sure that it didn't happen again. And yes, he was flawed, but he was doing so much more for me at that time than what had been done for me, which was protecting me, listening to me, seeing me, considering me. There were so many firsts that I experienced in this relationship. This man took me to go get my license. I purchased my first vehicle. I already said I got my first apartment. Like, he moved me to a different state for the first time. I saw a lot of firsts. And being a woman who hadn't been exposed to much, that was really all it took. What I know now that I did not know then is that trauma weakens your relationship with yourself and it makes you subjected to other predators. And so oftentimes victims of traumatic experiences, victims that experience narcissism on any level go from one traumatic experience to another, from one abuser to the other, from one hell to the other. And this situation was absolutely no different. I met this man at the lowest point of my life at that moment. And he taught me something so important about men that essentially there are two types of men in the world. One, there's a man that sees a woman and he loves her best broken, that as long as she's fragile and impartial and broken and hurt, he can fix her and help her and heal her and lead her. And then there's the man who feels like his best self when the woman that's on his arm is her strongest, her smartest, her boldest, her bravest. I learned that this man loved me best broken, but I also learned that love changes things. And that if you love anything in the right way, that it too will heal and it too will find repair and it too will find its worth. And so while he loved me best broken, the love was all I needed to begin to repair what was broken inside of me. That's how I met Jay, on a porch at midnight, 4 weeks, desperate to be seen and desperate to be saved. And he knew exactly what to say. Next episode, I'm going to tell you what happened when I got cancer while married to him. Because if the porch was the trap, cancer was the moment that I realized exactly how small the cage was. This is No Sugar on the Rocks. I'm Shamiria, and I'm telling you these stories so that you can spot the trap before you walk into it.